Who are the greatest NBA defenders of all time? I'm talking about the guys that put fear in the hearts of their opposition. Whether it was a lockdown, a perimeter defender, or whether it was a rim protector, those guys that just absolutely changed the game on the defensive side of the floor. On this show, I'm going to give you my top 10 greatest NBA defenders of all time. We're going to go from 10 all the way down to 1, but it's so many that I had to do an honorable mention list. When you start thinking about the names that are left out of my top 10, you could create a totally new top 10 just with the names that didn't make the top 10 all-time best defenders. So let's go ahead and jump into this thing as we're going to get real defensive and lock down on the top 10 of all time.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome back to Journey of a Ballaholic, the best talk show for basketball addicts. I'm your host, General Hannibal X. Now, if you're new on this channel, you're going to be getting my passionate and unfiltered opinion on the hottest NBA and college basketball topics. Listen, I'm a ballaholic. Now, if you're missing the NBA like me and you're a ballaholic, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Tap that like button, but also make sure you turn on the notification bell so that you'll be updated whenever I drop new videos, which is every Monday and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, before we get this video kicked off, go down to the comment section for the comment of the day. Let me know, who do you think is the greatest NBA defender of all time? All right, let's go ahead and get this video kicked off. But before we go into my top 10, I gotta give you my honorable mention list. Listen, this list was so hard to create. There's guys that didn't even make the honorable mention list that you could argue to be on the top 10 list. This list is insane, but without further ado, my honorable mention for the guys who didn't make the top 10, gotta start with guys like Tim Duncan. Made 15 all-defensive teams. Kobe Bryant, 9 times he was the first team all-defense. The big ticket, 1 defensive player of the year, anchored many defenses. Then you got guys like Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. Now, one of the reasons why I had to keep those two guys off is because the defensive stats did not start being recorded until the 1973-1974 season. So I didn't have anything to truly quantify and to really compare to others to kind of put them in ranking. So I had to take them out because of that. But let's not kid ourselves. Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain were 2 of the most dominant defensive players of all time. So I just got to put that out there. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get this list kicked off with number 10, the 2-time defensive player of the year, who goes by the name of the Claw. So at number 10, we got Kawhi Leonard. As we said, 2-time defensive player of the year, 3-time first team all defense, 2 times he made the second team all defense, and he's got career averages of 0.7 blocks a game, 1.8 steals, as well as 5.2 defensive rebounds. Now keep in mind, I added those 3 as the main categories for defense, that's steals, blocks, and defensive rebounds. And so when you look at the all-time, you look at Kawhi getting ranked 212th all-time. Now Kawhi is one of those guys where there's a lot of guys you could argue deserve to be there over him. But the absolute fear that he put in the hearts of some of the greatest players of all time, like who can forget the look that LeBron James gave when Kawhi Leonard checked back into the game and he realized that the claw was about to be locked on to him. So Kawhi Leonard is a guy who I think still has a lot of ability to rise up the rankings and could one day possibly become the greatest defender of all time. But as of today, based on what he's accomplished, I got him at number 10. Now, moving on to number 9, I got to go with the glove man, Gary Payton, the 1-time defensive player of the year. But keep in mind, he's the only point guard to ever win defensive player of the year. Also, he's tied for the most first team all defenses with, once again, guys like Kevin Garnett, guys like Kobe Bryant. 9-time first team all defense. He doesn't have any second team, but for a career average, even though he's got a low blocks with 0.2, 1.8 steals for a point guard elite, as well as 2.9 defensive rebounds. Now, the steals for Gary Payton, one of the things that kind of puts him up there while they call him the glove is not just the fact that he's 4th all time in steals. This little man had the heart of a lion. Gary Payton was that guy who you could put on anybody, whether it was Jordan, whether it was Pippen. I mean, it didn't matter the size. Payton was going to get into him and he was going to lock him down. So you got to have Gary Payton in my top 10 coming in at number 9. Now, speaking of Scottie Pippen, I got him over at number 8. Scottie Pippen, to me, is one of the most versatile defenders that the game has ever seen. Unfortunately, he never won a Defensive Player of the Year award, which, is kind of questionable, but he is an 8-time first-team All-Defensive member, as well as making the second team on 2 different occasions. Now, his career averages are 0.8 blocks a game, 2 steals a game, along with 4.6 defensive rebounds a game. That means that for his career, his totals, Scottie Pippen ranks 6th all-time in steals, 106th all-time in blocks, while also being 55th all-time in defensive rebounds. Now, for somebody who is not a 7-footer to be in the top 55 all-time in defensive rebounds, that just shows you how elite he was with that long wingspan and his ability to get the rebound and hit the floor on the going the other way. Let's jump over to number 7, one of the former teammates of Scottie Pippen. That's the Worm, Dennis Rodman. Now, Rodman was really known to me as the greatest rebounding forward of all time. But I think a lot of people kind of forget that his defense was elite. And I think that this Last Dance documentary they're doing is really showing just how elite Dennis Rodman's defense was. 2-time Defensive Player of the Year when he was with the Detroit Pistons, a 7-time first-team All-Defense, also made the second-team All-Defense. He wasn't a guy who was really out there creating a lot of steals or even being a elite rim protector. That wasn't his game, really. His career averages 0.6 blocks, 0.7 steals, but he does have 8.4 defensive rebounds. As we know, once again, he's one of the best rebounders of all time, but Rodman's defense was getting into the mind of the offensive player, getting under their skin, doing things that made the offensive scorer get out of character. He was just that nuisance that nobody wanted to go up against. So career totals of 243. He's ranked all-time in blocks, as well as 20th all-time in defensive rebounds. Once again, for a guy who's 6'7", 6'8", I mean that's putting in work on the glass. Now let's move on to number 6. Got to go with another Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman teammate. I got to go with the GOAT, man, Michael Jordan. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, to me, is not just the greatest all-around player. To me, he's the best perimeter defender the game's ever seen. Jordan's offense, I think sometimes people focus on the offense, but they lose sight of just how elite he was defensively. He won Defensive Player of the Year, 9 times first-team All-Defense, which is tied for the record, as well as having career averages of 0.8 blocks a game, 2.3 steals, along with 4.7 defensive rebounds. Now, you want to kind of put that into perspective, because when you have teammates like a Scottie Pippen, when you have guys like a Dennis Rodman on your squad, sometimes your defense kind of gets diminished. But let's keep it real. Jordan had to carry the offensive load every year, and he still was able to be elite on the defensive end, as you can see. All time, he ranks 3rd in steals. All time, he's 119th in blocks, and he's a 6'6" guard. And all time, he's ranks number 79 in defensive rebounds. Now, once again, let's remember, Jordan retired multiple times. So had he played throughout his entire career straight through, he would be even higher in these all-time rankings. So that's my top 6 right there. And now we're gonna jump into the top 5 best defenders of all time. Now these right here, these are the big men. These are the elite of all the elite when it comes to rim protectors. And for me, that being that last line of defense, it's a lot harder to be there, because that's where guys are coming. On the perimeter, especially in today's game where you can't hand check, right? Today's game, it makes it a lot tougher on the interior guys. And so when you got guys like coming in at number 5 with the Admiral David Robinson, guys who could be back there to protect the paint, protect the rim, I gotta put those big guys as the best defenders of all time, because they were able to defend that pick and roll as well as defend the post and protect the rim. So David Robinson, as we see, is won the Defensive Player of the Year award. He's a 4-time first-team All-Defender, as well as a 4-time second-team All-Defensive member. Career averages of an insane 3 blocks a game, 1.4 steals a game, as well as 7.5 defensive rebounds. When you start putting all that into one package, I mean, Robinson, to me, had a total package game. He literally could do it on both ends of the court. But for career, to be able to be ranked 60th all-time in steals, number 6 all-time in blocks, as well as number 22 all-time in defensive rebounds, he was the guy who could literally block a shot, grab the rebound, and push the ball up the court if he needed to. or defend that pick and roll and be able to switch into a guard if you needed to. That's the versatility that a guy like David Robinson, with his athletic ability and his versatility, was able to bring for the San Antonio Spurs. Now, moving on to number 4, another guy who did the same thing, another guy who's an elite defender. I'm going with big man, Ben Wallace. Now, Ben Wallace, as we know, is a not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Also, 5-time first team All-Defender. Also made the second team All-Defense. Ben Wallace was that guy who, despite him being, basically like 6'8", 6'9", to be honest with you. I mean, a chiseled body, but he didn't truly have the height like the 7-footers that he was defending. And we all remember him going up against Shaquille O'Neal in the 2004 finals, as well as even some of the matchups that he had against Shaq when Shaq went over to Miami. He went up against some of the biggest and baddest boys out there, and he held his own. Like I say, 2 career blocks a game, 1.3 steals a game, as well as 6.5 defensive rebounds. When you're able to be a big man that can not only get a lot of shots and, block a lot of shots, but also be able to play passing lanes and get a lot of steals, that's when you're truly disruptive on the defensive end, as well as, of course, being able to crash that board and secure the rebound as your team's able to get on the fast break and go the other way. So Ben Wallace comes in as 13th all-time in shot blocks, as well as 25th all-time in defensive rebounds. Now we're down to the top 3 as we come to the cream of the crop for the 10 greatest defenders of all time. Now, coming in at number 3, I gotta go with Dikembe Mutombo, man. Dikembe Mutombo, Mount Mutombo as they call him, made the finger wag absolutely famous. You're not coming into there and challenging Mount Mutombo without him just rejecting you dead at the rim. Now, a couple of guys got him, and you gotta keep it real. A couple of guys met him at the rim and they got him. But that's what all great defenders have to go through. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time first team All-Defense, 3-time second team All-Defense, with career averages of 2.8 blocks a game, as well as 0.4 steals and 7.1 defensive rebounds. Listen, it doesn't get much better than Mutombo. Mutombo's a guy who had that ability to be basically the best player on many of his teams, and he was just a defender. Mutombo didn't have that elite offensive package. Remember, when the Denver Nuggets upset the Seattle Supersonics in that 8-1 matchup, Mutombo was one of the main reasons why they won that game. His absolute domination on the defensive end. He ranks number 2 all-time in blocks and number 12 all-time in defensive rebounds. Mutombo gives you everything that you want from a defender, somebody who's going to challenge multiple shots at the rim, multiple attempts to put the ball in the basket. He's there to give you, and he's one of those guys that affect you, even if he's not blocking your shot. Just his presence, you're looking for Mutombo. And that's why I have to put him in my top 3 best defenders of all time. Now, down to the last 2. Coming in at number 2 is a guy who, his stats don't truly speak for how dominant he was. That's KAREEM Abdul-Jabbar, man. You gotta remember, the first 4 years of his career, they didn't even track defensive stats. So he was putting up insane numbers 5th year on. But the first 4 years, we're not even counting those totals, but he still wound up being a 5-time first team all-defensive member, a 6-time second team all-defense, with career averages of 2.6 blocks, 0.9 steals, and 7.6 defensive rebounds a game. Now check this out. Keep in mind, the first 4 years, they didn't track these stats, okay? But he still ranks all-time. He's 102nd all-time in steals. He's 3rd all-time in blocks and 9th all-time in defensive rebounds. Once again, if you look at the amount of rebounds, if you look at the amount of blocks that he had in his, let's say, year 5, 6, 7, and 8, look at what he did his first 4 years. And translate that out, he would have been the number 1 shot blocker, the number 1 defensive rebounder in NBA history if they were tracking those stats. Like, when you really take the time to look at that, that's insane. But unfortunately, just like in the situation with Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, we have to go with the stats that we actually have. So with that, without further ado, I gotta give you, to me, the greatest defender that the game has ever seen. I gotta go with the Dream, HAKEEM Olajuwon. This right here, it truly came down to understanding when you're looking and talking about the greatest defender of all time, he's got to be somebody who literally has no weaknesses on the defense. And Hakeem is that guy. I mean, granted, his awards speak for itself. Like I said, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 5-time First Team All-Defender, as well as 4-time Second Team All-Defender. But that's not truly saying a lot for how dominant Hakeem was. Let's think about this for a second. Hakeem is the only player in NBA history, that is top 10 in every single one of these defensive categories. He's number 10 in steals, he's number 1 in blocks, and he's number 7 in defensive rebounds. Career averages of 3.1 blocks, 1.7 steals. That's almost 2 steals a game for a big man, as well as 7.8 defensive rebounds. Hakeem is that guy who, to me, is the most skilled big man of all time. But not only was he skilled on the offensive end, he had the same type of skill on the defensive end. Hakeem could do it all. There was no weakness in his game. And Hakeem, to me, is a top 10 to 12 player of all time. And in large part, it's because of his dominance on the defensive end. So what do you think about my top 10 all-time defenders in NBA history? Who did I leave off? I know somebody, whether it was Alonzo Mourning, Ron Artest. I know I left somebody off that you're gonna ask. So who do you think I left off the list? Also, do you agree that Hakeem is the greatest defender of all time? If not him, who do you have as the greatest defender? What about Jordan? Do you think he's the greatest perimeter defender of all time? Let me know in the comment section below. But listen, if you've missed any of my previous videos, click one of these boxes I got right here for you on the screen. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, share this video, hit that like button. But until next time, peace.